Hello class, Mr. Garino here. In this video I'm going to illustrate how to make a relatively simple stick figure animation. And this is going to be the first video of a few that I'm going to make on how to do different types of animations now that we have learned a bunch of stuff in Flash, how to do drawings and motion tweens, shape tweens, frame by frame stuff. Now it's time to kind of put it all together and also put things on a website to illustrate to the world. So I made a folder called Mr. G Animation Tutorials. You guys obviously make a folder that's meaningful to the animation you're making. So if you're making a Spider-Man animation, make a folder called Spider-Man Animation and save all your stuff in there for that animation. Like obviously your Flash file, but you'll probably have some sound files in there, maybe music like the Spider-Man theme playing in the background. You're going to have probably some picture stuff. So all that you save in one folder makes it very orderly and convenient. So I have a bunch of different things to work on. So here I have stick figure and without embedded symbols. The next thing we'll go into is with embedded symbols, and we'll talk about that in another video. So without embedded symbols, here's one that was relatively simple, done by my son's friend back in 2012. Let me show you that as an example. So he called it Dean's Zombies, or Dean's Zombie. His name is Dean. So he has, and wherever you see the blue, that's a tween. So he's got 3 tweens going on. He's got some frame by frame animation stuff going on. And all he does is he tweens in the one guy, he moves in, he hits the knife, and the blood comes out in a frame by frame animation. And then from there, the guy moves in, and his leg goes up frame by frame. As the guy falls, that's just a tween over here, and then the knife flying away is another tween. Okay, so that was a relatively simple stick figure animation that Dean had made. So just as an example. So if I play that, okay, he actually has some sound in it too, which adding sound to your animations, I'll show you that again in another video. So I have to keep this one kind of short. Alright, so I'm going to close this out. And if you get this startup screen with Flash, which most people do, you just click here for creating a new one, ActionScript 3.0. If you don't get this startup screen, you just go to File, New, and choose ActionScript 3.0 and say OK. I'm going to say cancel because I did get the startup screen, so I'm just going to click here. And it starts a new one. And by default, it pretty much always starts like this. 550 by 400 stage size, 24 frames per second. The stage is white, 1 layer, nothing on it. And the first thing I'm going to do is import the 2 pictures I'm going to use in my animation. So I've decided to make an animation about a soccer guy kicking a ball from a corner kick and having one of his teammates head it in when it gets to the middle, basically, of the goal, and head it in. Now this isn't the best looking, most awesome animation ever you're going to see, but it just illustrates how to do something like this. So let me go get my 2 pictures. Now I've already went to the internet, did a search, found what I wanted, saved them to my folder, so now I just have to import them. I don't want to import the stage because I'm going to do 2 at once. So I always like to do import to library so that once I get in a library I see what I have, and then I import, or rather drag onto the stage what I want and on what layer that I want. So that's my preference. Okay, so I'm going to go and get my soccer ball and my soccer field. So I hold down Control when I click the second one so I can do them both. Click open. And of course, some people maybe still even say, well, what happened? Where'd they go? They went into the library, but that tab's not selected. So when I click on that, you'll see here they are. Now Flash knows that it's an animation software, and it knows that little graphical things you get from the internet cannot be animated unless they're made into a symbol. So it already made them both into symbols, and it made them graphic symbols, and we'll go into that in the next video about the difference between graphic and movie clip symbols and why we use graphic symbols when we do animations. But for now, let's just say use a graphic symbol. Now the soccer ball we're going to animate. It's going to fly through the air, basically. The soccer field we're not going to animate. The soccer field doesn't go flying through the air. So Flash did make the soccer field a symbol, but we don't really need that to be a symbol because it's just going to be the background. So if we left it there, it's not a big deal, but since we don't need it, I'm just going to either right click and say delete, or you could go down to the bottom and click the garbage pail down here, or you could just hit delete on your keyboard and get rid of that symbol. So I only have the ball as a symbol. So the soccer field, I'm going to drag onto the stage. So I take the soccer field from here and drag, or from here and drag, it doesn't matter, and go onto the stage. Now if you notice, right now my soccer field is bigger than my stage. So if I put it like this and I play it right now, you're not going to see the whole soccer field because the stage is too small to show it all. So you better resize your stage to fit your background. And how big is my background? Well, while I have it selected, if I go to properties, you'll see that it's 780 by 496. If I click away, that shows me the properties of my document, which means my stage size. So you'll see my stage is 550 by 400. And if you remember, this is 780 by 496. So I think I'll make my stage a little bit bigger. And the reason for that is I'm going to have a stick figure guy come in here and kick, and his head's going to be based on the height that I'm going to make him off of the field a little bit. And I don't want his head to be off the stage because I want you to see his head. So I'm going to make the stage a little bit bigger than this. So instead of 780 by 496, making it exactly the same, I'm going to make it a little bigger. Now for you guys, if you had like some background of New York City and Spider-Man flying around, I don't think you want to see the white. So you want to make the stage exactly the size of your background image. 780 by 496 in this case. If your background image was smaller and you made your stage really big, you could resize your background image to be the size of the stage. You just got to be careful with that a little bit because when you make pictures bigger, sometimes, depending on the graphic that you got, sometimes when you stretch them, they get blurry. So be careful with that. Alright, so my stage I want to be, let's say we make it 850 by 550. Let me see how that looks. And then I'm going to grab my field, try and put it in the center. That probably looks about right, but I think over here I got more room than over there. So, how could we fix that? Well, while this is selected, if you use your alignment panel, if I wanted to match it to the width and height of the stage, I'd pick this. But remember, I don't. I want the field a little smaller. So I'm not going to check that or click that. But when I do align it, I want align the stage on. So I'm going to align horizontal center. So I moved it over a little. And then I'm going to align the vertical center. So it moved it up just a tad. So now it's centered right inside the stage. Okay? So that's because I know I'm going to have, again, if you think ahead a little bit, you can help yourself. Because I know I'm going to have a stick figure here, and his leg's basically going to kick the ball that's over here, so his head's going to be up here. So his head's going to be off the field, but still on the stage. Hopefully, when I'm all done. So, let's bring in the ball. So go back to my library. Here's my soccer ball. If I bring in the picture, I can't animate it. I'm going to have to convert it to a symbol. Flash already gave me the symbol, so I might as well bring in the symbol. But before I start dragging it onto the stage, I better realize I'm only on layer 1. That's where the field is to make an animation, or a tween, which is what I'm going to do of the ball. A motion tween. It needs to be on its own layer. So, let's go down here, click the new layer button, and let's name our layer so we know what we're talking about. So this is the field, or really the background, and this is the ball. Okay, so while the ball layer is selected, that's when I drag the ball symbol onto the field. And in fact, let's do this. Let's rename this symbol ball so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we drag the ball onto the stage, and of course it's going to be gigantic. And the one I found a PNG file, which is good to find because lots of times they're transparent. So when I did my search, I did soccer ball transparent. That's why I got a PNG. Soccer field, I mean, that could have been a JPEG because there's don't need transparency around it. I mean, the field is the whole field. It's not round, it's rectangle anyway. So it could have been a JPEG, it just happened to be a PNG. Okay, but the ball you definitely want to be a PNG. So I'm going to go to my free transform tool. And these lines that came with it, I don't know why whoever drew it did that, but right now you see it. But when I shrink it down to be the size of a ball in a field, you're not going to see those lines. And really I should hold down the shift key so that when I drag, I can't make it like an egg shape like this. Okay, so when I hold down the shift key, it stays constrained to be a good circle. Okay, so that's probably bigger than a soccer ball would look on a field of this size, but I want to keep it kind of big so that it's easier to see. So with my move tool, I'm going to go put it up in this corner. I guess if I thought a little better, if I put the guy kicking from down here, his head would be up here, and I wouldn't have to worry about his head being off the stage. So that's actually something I just realized. So now that I realize that, I think it would look better without the white on the outside. So let me go back, and on this click, and then go to Align, and I'm going to match the width and the height. So that's the same size. I guess this picture had a little bit of a white border on the edge. I don't really know why. And notice I didn't really lose any quality because this is just like a drawing. But let me undo that. And instead, just so it does look a little cleaner here, I think when I made it a little bigger, it did get a tad blurry. So let's do it the other way. Let's go back and make this whatever this is. So this is 780 by 496. So we'll make this 780 by 496. And then of course you want to click this. Yeah, see it's got a little extra edge there. So maybe I could even clean that up. But let me go back and do align to stage. Oh, the right and the left. Okay, so if I make the width or the height of the stage a little less, so instead of 780, maybe 775. Oops, not that one. This one. So instead of 496, maybe 490. Could that be enough? And of course I changed the field by accident. This is why these things take time. Still see a little white. I'm pressing the keyboard up now to go 1 pixel at a time. So it looks like maybe instead of 490, 488. How's that for being precise? And move this field up just 1. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay, so now that I have my field the same size as my stage, well, almost the same size because I made it a little smaller, right? 496, 488. So I took off a few pixels so we don't see that white border. So now I'll go back to what I was doing. But instead of putting the ball up here and having the guy's head off the stage, I'm going to put the ball down here. First time I played around with this, I put it up top. I don't know why. It makes more sense to put it here. Okay, so now I want the ball to go over to the front of the net, which obviously is this as it's drawn. Go over to the front of the net and be kicked in. So I'm going to make a little tween here. I'm going to go out to, I don't know, let's say frame 120. Right now we're set at 24 frames per second, and if you do a little math, that would be 5 seconds, because 5 times 24 is 120. So I go out to 100. Now, it doesn't need to be a 5-second animation. I just thought that would be nice, because I'm just working on this. And as you do it, sometimes when you're all done, you say, gee, that was too short, or that was too long, and then you have to change it. But I'm thinking 5 seconds is going to be good. So let's see. I press F5 to extend both of them out to there, so that they both exist the whole time. Of course, the field doesn't ever do anything. So right now, if I want, so that I don't actually accidentally move the field around in any way, I could lock that layer so that I can't actually click it and move it or do anything to it. It's a good idea. It's the background. It's just going to sit there. Okay, but the ball is going to move. So the ball layer has to be a tween. So I'm going to right click inside that gray area and say create motion tween. And right now, of course, it doesn't do anything. So let's say I want it to fly over here and then go in. So we could, and a lot of people say the way you do things like this, and I don't know how far am I going to go out. Well, it's going to fly over, and then it's going to get kicked, and then it's going to go in the goal. And then, of course, it's always good to make something sit there for a second or so, so that um, people can see how the animation ended before it replays again. So I don't want the ball to be in the goal right here, because then it's just going to go in the goal and immediately go back to the kick. So I'm thinking maybe 100. So maybe 90, 96, 100, I don't know, 99. So go 33, 66, 99, something like that. So let's try that somewhere over here. So the ball gets kicked, it comes to here, then it gets headed, then it goes into there. So here's my, I can right click over here and say insert keyframe all. And right now the ball doesn't do anything. But at this position, I'm going to move the ball over here. And right now you'll see the ball flies over. But that, I don't know that that looks too realistic. But okay, let's leave it there for now. Then somewhere over here, I want the ball to fly in. But if you notice, I've already kind of messed up, because then it's already in, and I wanted that to be somewhere over here. So maybe this one, if I click away, if I click on the diamond and hold down, I could, oops, if I click on it once and then click again and hold down, I could move it over to here, so it's at 45 instead of 33. Okay, and then I'll go out to 90 and put it in the goal. So that's, oops, let me click away. I accidentally picked up on the line over here. I want to get the ball. There we go. And then I'm going to put it in the goal like this. Okay, so right now my motion tween looks like this. So I'm going to have a guy down here, stick figure kicks it, and another guy over here, stick figure moves in and he hits it with his head, and then it goes into the goal. But if you notice, it's kind of very straight and linear. And I think when a guy kicks a ball, doesn't it go in the air a little bit? Sure. So somewhere around here it should be going up. So somewhere over here I'm going to add a keyframe, or just make this ball, change something about this ball. So if I move this ball right now, as soon as you move it, it inserts a keyframe, a little diamond. So let me move it over here. So now my motion looks like that. Okay, so it added a keyframe, so now it's got that in-between point. Boom, 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 and then it goes in the goal. Okay, but at this in-between point, and you'll also notice that, well, let me stick it one thing at a time. At that in-between point is where I want it to be at its biggest. So it's like it went into the air and then it's coming down. Okay, but right now it doesn't do anything, and maybe I didn't even want it to move. Although that moving over a little bit kind of looks good, almost looks like it's hooking. Well, maybe it's hooking a little too much. But anyway, we can change that in a minute if we don't like it. But right here I want the ball to be bigger. So I could use the free transform tool, and I can drag, or I can look over here and it says the width is 32 and the height is 21.3, and that's the ball that I have selected. This little thing right here is a lock, so I'm going to lock that. Now that it's locked, when I change the width, the height will change proportionally, so that I really only have to remember one number, which is 32. Okay, so let me make it 50. Okay, now this is probably going to be exaggerated, but we want it to be exaggerated so you can see the animation. So I want it to go up to 50, then back down to 32, because it's going from the foot up in the air to the head. Now I know the guy's head is going to be higher than the guy's foot, but that's only a little bit. When it goes in the air, that's something that you could actually notice. So right here we have, it goes up, and then it goes back down, and then it goes in. If it doesn't go back down because maybe you put in this keyframe before that keyframe, and sometimes that'll happen with you. If it doesn't go back down, go over to this keyframe and look at the properties of the ball. The width and the height should be the same as when it started, right? So here we have oops, I should say over here. Here we have a width of 103. I hate when that happens. Sometimes it's giving you the wrong thing. So that wasn't the width of the ball. So here we have a width of 32. Oh, see, why is it jumping away from the ball again? Sometimes after you move it, you have to click on it. Now watch right now. It says 103. I guess that's the path. Let me click on the ball. So there's 32. Let me move it over to here. And how big is the ball now? The ball is 50, like we put in. I guess every time you move it, it jumps back to the path over here, which is sort of annoying me, but good thing to learn. Then we click it again. It went back to 32. Okay, so now if it didn't go back to 32 over here, just come over here and put in 32, and then it will. Okay, and then it stays at 32 as it goes into the net. So right now we have this, which I think looks pretty good, other than it's got that little bump there as it changes. So if we don't want it to look almost like something hit it in the air, we can make this more of like a curvature. So if we did something like this, come over to this, and sometimes these things can be difficult. Okay, so I was on a different tool over here and that was messing me up and I hadn't realized it. It happens to people all the time. Let me zoom in and then make sure I'm on my move tool. And then if you just move up to this path, if you get that little cursor with the arc to it, if I click at that time and hold down, I can drag this path to be more of a arc, and that might look better. So let's zoom back out and then look at it now. So that kind of looks, to me, that looks good. So it starts moving and then it kind of goes up in the air as it's arcing, then it kind of goes more straight, and then the guy's going to head it, and then it goes into the goal. And notice that it grows as it goes up in the air, and then at that point it starts coming down and it's not arcing anymore, and then it gets headed in. But the one thing I didn't do, and of course then it ends over here, the one thing I didn't accommodate for is there's going to be a guy here moving in and his leg's going to kick the ball, but the ball's moving already right in the beginning of the animation. So really I need the ball to maybe not move for the first 10 frames. So how do I do that? We don't want the ball to move from frame 1 to frame 10, but it already is, because from frame 1 to frame 10 we're going to have our kicker guy come in and kick the ball, so the ball doesn't move until he kicks it, obviously. If I come in here and I say, okay, well, where is the ball at frame 1? And I go up here and I click on the ball, of course, first, and it says our width is 32 at that point because it didn't get any bigger. It's at frame 1, and it's at 29.35 and 450.30. So that it's easier to remember, let me just change these numbers now and round off 29 to 30 and round off 450.3 to just 450. Okay, so now we know those two numbers exactly and easy to remember. So if I come out here and I put it at frame 10 and I click on the ball and I say, no, I don't want it to move, so I want it to be at 30 and 450. Okay, so it puts it back, but what's it doing? It's moving up, and then it's moving back, so it's made it all part of the tween. So obviously, that's not really what we want to do, right? Because that looks going to look dumb. The ball's moving before the guy kicks it. It's like bouncing around, and a corner kick is just laid down on the ground. So let me undo all that. The better way to have done this, or the correct way, is to have thought of that beforehand, which I said, if you remember, I said it's good to think about what you want to do before you do it, so you set things up correctly. And I didn't do that. I'd like to say I didn't do it on purpose so that I could look real smart, but I didn't do it because I didn't think of it. And so maybe that's a good illustration, because I'm sure people are going to not think of certain things. So what's a good way to make something stationary for a while? Well, really, we don't need a tween for a ball that doesn't move. So this whole long tween thing, that's right now, and I don't want to get rid of it and start over. If I just click away from everything, and then click here, I hate when that happens. Let me try the other end. I want to select this whole tween, so I'm going to click here, hold down, go all the way to the end, and then once I've done that, I'm going to click in the middle, so I've selected the whole tween, and drag these frames over to frame, starting at frame 11. Now I have an empty section, which is what I did before. I should have put this from 1 to 120, and then at frame 10 pressed F7 to give me a blank key, or F6 to give me a new keyframe, and then made the tween from here to here, not the whole thing. But since I messed up, I can still go back and fix it this way. I move the tween over to where I wanted to start, and then this blank area I need to fill in, because right now that blank area doesn't include the ball. But the ball does start to move at frame 10 or 11, which is what I want, right? So that's good. But what about frame 1 to 10? Where's the ball? Well, let's go back over here and drag the ball on the screen again. Because basically when you have, and maybe what I should do is this, here's example. What I should have did is, I should have put the ball on the screen, I should have put it over here. Let's turn off this other ball layer so we don't see it. Okay, and then instead of making this whole thing a tween, I should have came out here and pressed F6. Okay, then I would have the ball there up to here, and then of course over here I would have my tween. So when I make the tween, all right, so I have a stationary ball and then a tween, and over here I could, do my movement. All right, so the ball sits there and then gets kicked. That was the right way to do it. But I didn't think of that to begin with. So now I'm doing it sort of the long way. But it can still be fixed. So let me delete this layer. So on this ball layer, I need to put the ball from 0 to 10. And we know that the ball, before it starts to move, we know that, if I go back to properties, it's a width of 32, and it's at 30 and 450. Why I put in that 0.3 again, I don't really know. Okay, so let's go over here to frame 1, drag on our ball. Of course it's gigantic, but we'll go back to properties and we'll make it, and make sure we're on that ball, yeah, 32. And because it's locked, it makes it the right height. It should be basically the same. It could be off by like that little round off factor. What we know over here was 30, and over here was 450. So now, let me click away so we can see the ball. You shouldn't see it move at all from here to here. I mean, I don't know. If we zoomed in, maybe we could see it moving a tad, but when we play this animation, no one's going to see that. Okay, so that's how you fix it if you messed up. Now we also have a little bit extra on the end here, so that's going to look silly when it plays because the field's going to disappear. Boom. So we have two options. We could extend the field, or I can delete this part of the animation. So let me do that. I'm going to select those. Of course, you always want to click away first, then click and hold down in one shot, drag to select. I'll right click and say remove frames. Okay, so I've successfully fixed, I wouldn't say really what I messed up. It was just something I hadn't thought of until afterwards, and then how do you go back and include it? So that's how you go back and include it. So if you mess something up, you could go back and start all over again. Or if you say, gee, I don't want to start all over again, I already got what I want. There's ways to modify things. Of course, the best way is to have it all thought out in your head, exactly what you want to do before you do it. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, because lots of times when you're basically done, there's things you want to add or change. And that's one way to change it. So let's play this and see if it looks the way I want. So the ball goes up, gets headed in, goes in the net. Watch it play again. I don't know about you, but I think it looks good. Other than that, as it goes up, and then it just kind of goes straight across, which to me looks a little weird. Doesn't really look like a natural motion. So maybe this curvature. Let's see if I can adjust it. But for now, I've certainly done enough work. I should have saved this already. So let's save it before I mess something up. And we'll call it ball and field. Okay, so now that we have that saved, let's see if we can adjust this a little bit. So make sure we're on our move tool. Probably going to mess it up. Yep, messing it up. Let's undo all that. Okay, so rather than using the move tool, I'm going to go to our sub-selection tool, because if I arc this more, I'm going to have a hard time blending it with that. So I think if I move this node point right here, that might help. Let me zoom in. Go back to my sub-selection tool. And now that I've zoomed in, it's being annoying. Here we go. See if we can move this like this. And then maybe go back to the move tool. Nope, nope. And maybe arc this a little bit like that. I don't know. Let's see how it looks. Well, that looks a little better. That's a hell of a kick. Guys, it gets it to go out and then curve right back down and in. Awesome. Okay, so that's what I want. That's what I like. Again, this is just a animation showing you how to make something move. Now we got to add the stick figures. So let's leave this one as it is, as the beginning of what I want to do. Now I got to add my stick figures to go along with the movement of my ball. So I'm going to end this video and then go on to the next one.